We're being recorded. All right. Oliver, you're my audience. There we go. Let's see how it's up. I guess that's going to be good like that. And maybe even a little closer. That should work. Okay. Here is the presentation for the home group of the PowerPoint presentation to the New Jersey Regional Service Conference. Here's my official pointing stick. And we will see if I can do this in 15 minutes. I doubt it. Okay, this is a presentation on the New Jersey motion for the World Service Conference motion to approve the 1981 review and input draft of the NA Basic Text Graybook and the NA Basic Text 3rd edition revised with the original Traditions Baby Blue Basic Text. This is going to be a presentation on the motion for the region to vote to go to the World Service Conference. And the first goal is to approve the motion. The other goal is really to get an understanding of the issue. It's very easy to say it's a motion for literature approval. There's many other issues that are combined with this that are significant, that really have to be looked at so that we can have a full understanding about what we're actually voting on. There's a lot of disagreement, so this will be a process of conflict resolution, and we will be looking at service models or alternate viewpoints on service itself. So we're going to have to look at it with an open mind, and hopefully we can find unity through the acceptance of our diversity itself. Okay. We open all of our recovery meetings and all our service conferences with the serenity prayer. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. Wisdom is, we really need to have the wisdom to know the difference between when it is time to practice acceptance and when it is time to change. We really need to take a look at the wisdom of when it's time to change. The wisdom that we're looking for is a combination of knowledge and experience. When we pray the serenity prayer, we're trying to pray for spiritual principles. Acceptance, courage, and wisdom are spiritual principles. When we are practicing those, we can usually find serenity as an outcome. People ask, why did we make this motion? What are we doing? Why are we causing all these problems? The reason, this is a very difficult motion, and this is not one of the easier issues to deal with in the fellowship. It's much easier to deal with public information. I find a lot more enjoyment, a lot more satisfaction, and a lot more welcome response doing public information and getting literature for drug court and doing H&I presentations. This issue is not one that is comfortable, it's a struggle. People say, why are you making that motion, and why are we doing with this? Why are we submitting it? People don't like what we're doing in NA. If we don't like what we're doing, then people say, make a motion in your home group, take it to area, take it to region, and submit it to the World Service Conference. The reason we're submitting this motion for regional approval is kind of simple, because it is the process that is outlined in the NA Fellowship Intellectual Property Trust Bulletin number 5, Conflict Resolution within the NA Fellowship. This is the process that is outlined. If a conflict should arise on the local level regarding reprinting of NA Fellowship approved literature or use of the NA trademark, The following is the process that will be used to resolve it. Item number 6, if a member, group, service board, or committee is not satisfied with the decision made by World Services, then it can request that the conflict be resolved at the next biannual meeting of the World Service Conference. So if we're looking for the short answer to do 2 pros and 2 cons, and how can we send this back and discuss it as simply as possible, this motion to approve the Gray Book and the NA Baby Blue basic text is a process of compromise outlined in the Intellectual Property Trust Bulletin number 5, Conflict Resolution within the Fellowship. There is the 50-cent answer. If you're looking for a short answer to take back to the areas and to the groups, that's it. We can go to lunch now. That would be it. Continuing on here, this information is very subjective. Regardless of how objective we want to be, or say we're trying to present both sides of an issue, we all have personal opinions, and we all have a very subjective viewpoint on what we're doing. The information in this PowerPoint presentation and the information I present is accurate. The selection of facts are always subjective. We are always trying to represent a viewpoint that we believe in. Feel empowered to make your own subjective conclusions. We need to get very honest here. We need to take a look at what we're talking about, get honest, and what are the real questions, and what are we trying to answer? Why are we trying to deal with something at the World Service level? Do we even want to do that? It's a very difficult decision to make. Are we willing to discuss the possibility of different service models? Are we willing to look at service models that aren't attached to the World Service Conference? You're going to hear a lot of discussion about what's an outside issue, or that some of us are not part of NA. Who's out of NA? When does the group of service committee actually become outside NA or not part of NA? Who is the judge of tradition violations? Who actually judges them? And what authority does the World Board, the region, or areas really have to declare a group, service board, or committee not NA? And how do we do that? How do we decide that a group is not NA, to take them off a meeting list or ban them from service? Who has that authority? What is that process? When we start discussing this issue, everybody wants to keep it simple. I've been told, don't get into some of these issues, don't go there. Let's just keep it simple, just discuss the motion. Wisdom is a combination of knowledge and experience. We have to have the actual knowledge of what we're talking about. We really want to keep the issue very small. It's not. It's kind of like if we wanted to approve the purchase of an engine and everybody was thinking it was going into a Volkswagen, and in reality it was going into a train. There'd be a significant difference in cost and outcome. We can't pretend like we're talking about a Volkswagen when we're actually talking about an issue that goes into a train. My home group is the Gray Book Step Study Group of Narcotics Anonymous. We use the NA Basic Text Gray Book, 1981 Review and Input Draft. It would be nice to say this is just a motion to allow my home group to use the Gray Book in our meetings, or to not be criticized for using the Gray Book in our meetings. That is not the entire issue. There's actually a whole list of problems. If you look at this list right here, like my handy pointer here, this is one of my grandkids' nets for the ponds. There's a whole list of disagreements here. These disagreements are all issues that we've been dealing with in World Service for a very long time. The actual selection of the NA basic text has always been an issue of disagreement. The service principles that we operate under, 12 traditions, 12 concepts, the new service system proposals, are always, there's always been a conflict over what the actual principles are that we're using, what's our decision-making process, what is our real literature development process. Is it group participation, strictly doing it in groups and work groups? Are we using professionals to write the literature? What is the approval process? That has actually varied significantly through the period of our fellowship. Approving meetings on the meeting list or disapproving meetings on the meeting list. How's that actually done? It's something we have to talk about. Service participation, who gets to vote, how's everybody make decisions, Are we using consensus-based decision making? Are we using Robert's rules? Are we using GSR only voting? There's constant questions about how we make decisions and who makes them. There's a lot of issues that we really do look at. This is a better clarified viewpoint of the whole thing, and so I probably should have explained it while I had this one up, because you can actually see what it says. There's a lot of issues, there's a lot of questions, there's a lot of different service models that we can end up talking about. There's a lot of different viewpoints. It makes our head hurt. It makes us really question, why are we doing this? What's the answer? What service models do I pick? Should we change nothing? Should we kick the groups out that are using alternative literature? Should we have autonomous service conferences, use the zonal service conferences now? We have a lot of decisions to make, and it really does seem to be frustrating. But there's decisions that have to be made. There's change occurring in the fellowship. We need to take a look at the directions that we're going in. One of the reasons we're submitting a motion for the baby blue and the gray book is because the fellowship is really not prepared. At this point, there's been no discussion on an issue that really should occur, and it would be doing another inventory of world services. Maybe it's time to take a look at the inventory similar to the one, this is the motion that we put in 1993 and 94. It was actually made by the Board of Trustees and our world leaders to do an inventory. We might be getting to a point where it's time to do that again. What they did was we stopped doing services for a while, stopped projects, and this was a questionnaire that went out to all of the regions. This one was for the regional service committees. A questionnaire went out to the area service committees. There was a group questionnaire, and there was an effort to actually poll the fellowship to see what areas we needed to change in service. The outcome was not what any of us expected, nor do I believe it was actually the outcome that was outlined from the surveys. Why are groups using alternative literature? Why does our home group use the gray book? Why are some groups using the baby blue basic text? Why are we not just going along and conforming to what everybody else does? Some of us support it because it's the cheapest and most effective way to get a basic text into the hands of another addict. Some of us support it because we believe the third edition is the best version of the basic text. Some people use the gray book because it has a message of recovery that is beneficial, has a very unique raw message of recovery. Some people support the baby blue because they have a deep belief in the original 4th and 9th tradition. Some of us support it because we don't like literature that isn't written completely by addicts when it's corrupted by paid professionals. Some of us support it just because they don't like doing anything with world services. And some groups in areas are developing their own service structures. My home group is actually very conformist in the area. We're a step study group that meets every Tuesday night in Mays Landing, New Jersey. We adhere to the 12 steps and 12 traditions completely. Our home group is listed on the Cape Atlantic area meeting list and the New Jersey statewide directory. Our home group is very active in service in both the area and the regional level. We participate in all level. We only use NA literature that is written by NA members and carries a message of narcotics and anonymous recovery. We really don't believe that the gray book is a replacement for the regular basic text, but it is a very complementary accessory to it. When we start talking about the baby blue, we start talking about the different versions of the basic text and what has been changed in them. There's 3 major changes that occurred to the basic text. One was the original 4th and 9th tradition that was changed twice. It was altered from its original form, it was changed back, and then it was altered again. In 1986, there was a list of white book changes. In 1987, professional editing occurred to the basic text. In 1988, they tried to correct the editing on the conference floor. We could go through this for a while to explain why all the different basic texts occurred. We talk about literature that was fellowship reviewed. most of these copies of the basic text were not ever included in a conference agenda report. The gray book was reviewed by the fellowship, sent out to everybody. The approval draft was sent out to all the groups in NA at the time because there wasn't that many of them. The first edition was altered by a group of people. The second edition was converted back to the original approval form. The third edition was changed on the conference floor without discussion before the World Service Conference. The third edition revised included these white book changes that was sent out to the fellowship for approval. The fourth edition was changed by a professional editor and never approved by the fellowship. The fifth edition was approved on the conference floor with changes without going to the fellowship. The sixth edition went out to the fellowship, but we weren't allowed to make changes to it. So there are all the changes that's how the process occurred. The fourth and ninth editions were in the original gray book. They were in the approval form. This is how they were written in the original gray book and the original second edition basic text. The lines in red are the ones that were altered. These were taken out originally by members of the World Service Office and Board of Directors and a trustee, I believe. They were taken out without the fellowship's approval. This is how it originally read. Are we truly, this is the fourth tradition. Are we truly autonomous? What about our service committees, our offices, activities, hotlines, and other things that go on in NA? The answer is that these things are not NA. They're services that we utilize. Narcotics Anonymous is a fellowship of men and women meeting, addicts meeting in groups and using a given set of spiritual principles to find freedom from addiction and a new way to live. All else is not NA. Whether or not we use our services, utilize the services is up to the group. That's how it was originally written. It was converted back in the second tradition, in the second edition basic text, and taken back out on the conference floor and created the third edition basic text. The ninth tradition